Okay, the fifth piece, Saunter, it was written in May 2020, but I revisited the piece and I continued to develop it when I was working on the album in December. I chose to revisit this piece because I felt like musically it could be expanded upon. But the one in May had a concept, but I felt that the concept could be explored even further. I also felt that it has a strong connection to the theme of being on a journey, and I also wanted to incorporate calmness and a relaxed atmosphere in my music. So this piece was actually inspired by the word Saunter, which means to stroll in a relaxed and slow manner. This concept first came about because May 2020 was very different from the normal that we were used to. I wanted to show how, although our lives have been affected in one way or another by the pandemic, we can still continue to do what we love. Santo was actually a piece that I think I wrote out of an improvisation on the piano. Once again, I wanted to show a bit more of contrast in character. So the piece has a darker character in the middle of the composition before the main theme returns. When the theme returns, it also has electronic beats, and this was to create a more hopeful character in the music. For my sixth piece, Klavier, I recorded it 6 days before the album was released. I didn't have any concept for this. I purely just wanted to write calm music, and it was actually based off a previous improvisation on the piano. The word Klavier actually means piano in German. That's why I chose to name this piece Klavier. I wanted this piece to help listeners to just take some time to sit down and be calm. My final piece is just the beginning. It's a piece that means quite a lot to me as well. Originally, I wanted this piece to be a harp solo, and I was going for a simpler sounding and a generally a pleasant sounding piece as a wrap-up for the entire album. At the same time, I also had been working on this new compositional approach where I partially compose the music and I partially improvise. I recorded the harp multiple times before I layered the recordings over each other, and I edited the piece on GarageBand. I first discovered this approach when I was working on my first album, Stepping Stone, in the track Duality, where I recorded the piano and then I recorded the harp, and then I layered all the recordings that I had on top of each other, and I edited this in GarageBand. So all the sounds that you hear in the piece were actually recorded, but then they were edited. I decided to try this compositional approach again because the previous 2 times when I did it for Duality and for the special edition of Drifting, I felt that there were some mistakes which I made. For example, when I recorded the music, the timings didn't really fit, so I had to cut a lot of the sound clips up into smaller sections. But that also resulted in clipping in the audio clips, which creates an undesirable effect. So I wanted to try this again because I would like to improve in this aspect, trying to electronically manipulate recorded sounds. This piece seeks to show that although this is ultimately just the beginning, we ought to take things one step at a time and try not to rush the process. This is reflected through the slow tempo of the music and a much greater use of silence as compared to the tracks before. I was also trying to create a more reflective piece. I ended up recording a lot of musical material, but I deleted more than 50% of it from the final piece that you heard because I did not want the music to sound too overwhelming. And I think this is something that I can definitely work on, which is to not just focus on what I add into the music, but to also use my delete button more to see what I can remove, because sometimes the removal of musical material is more important than adding musical material. This is something that I'm still trying to work on. In conclusion, I feel like writing this album was quite a tough process because my inspiration was not very consistent. I also did not want to write music that all sounded the same, especially after writing my first album, because I feel like listeners might lose interest in the music if it all sounds the same. So I tried to explore a wider range of instruments and techniques when I was writing this album. I'm also glad that I was able to try to infuse dance and film into this album. Thank you for listening to the album. If you haven't had a chance to, you can listen to it. Moving forward, I'm trying to employ the half composed, half improvised approach into another piece in my upcoming third album that will be released at the end of this year. So you can expect to hear more of the harp. If there's anything else that you would like to hear in this year's album, yeah, do let me know. and I will try my best to edit.